I'm Matt McClure.
And I'm Francesca Maxime, and this is Currents.
The Da Vinci Code made them infamous, but we'll get the real story of Opus Dei.
Opus Dei is an institution of the Catholic Church that helps people come closer to God in their work and their everyday lives.
Plus, is it the real face of God? An author shines some light on the subject.
And you may not know his name, but what he had to say still has people talking.
He was trying to think very creatively about sin, original sin, about man and the universe.
Well, good evening. Thanks so much for joining us. A Westchester couple is in hot water, charged with scamming the heir of an oil tycoon out of millions of dollars. They reportedly did so by convincing the man that priests connected with the group Opus Dei were trying to hurt him.
While that scam may seem far-fetched, but thanks to the Da Vinci Code, millions of readers and moviegoers may think that Opus Dei is both mysterious and threatening. But is it really? Well, the answer may surprise you. Our Natalia Ortiz has more.
82 years ago, Jose Maria Escriva founded a Catholic movement. The movement is called Opus Dei, and it has been shrouded in mystery since the beginning. But Brian Finnerty, communications director for Opus Dei, believes the real mystery is why everyone is so suspicious of their mission.
Opus Dei is an institution of the Catholic Church that helps people come closer to God in their work and their everyday lives.
And that's a goal that's common to any religion. But Opus Dei's stigma as a dark, secret society persists. Finnerty believes that perception might be shaped by the organization's youth.
Opus Dei is a fairly new institution in the Catholic Church. It was founded in 1928. And like many of the other major institutions in the Church, the Jesuits or the Dominicans or the Franciscans, they went through a new kid on the block phenomenon.
Relative youth aside, exotic practices like members engaging in physical discomfort, also known as corporal mortification, appear sinister from the outside.
People like Mother Teresa, John Paul II, St. Francis of Assisi, St. Teresa of Avila, many of them used physical forms of sacrifice. And there are certain members of Opus Dei as well who do that. Like wearing an uncomfortable chain around the thigh. And the idea of that is not to cause any sort of physical injury. I mean, it doesn't, but as a token reminder of the love that Christ had for us.
But Finnerty says it's the minority who take part in physical sacrifice. He said most of the sacrificial acts Opus Dei members engage in are everyday acts.
So the most important sacrifice can be like a smile, or like finishing your work, or trying to help a person when he stops by in your office.
But that's not the only rumor, and I went on a fact-finding mission to see if another rumor, that members are all wealthy, has any truth to it. Terrence Gallagher, an Opus Dei member and attorney in New Jersey, says, like any group, there's a healthy mix of people from all walks of life.
It's been my experience just here in New Jersey. We have some chaps on Wall Street that are doing extremely well, and we have some men of very modest means that are professional men, and so it's very much of a mix rather than an elite financial group per se.
But enough about who they're not. Dr. Tananko, a dentist in Queens, is an Opus Dei member. She says their mission is to live the gospel in work and ordinary life. She also says its principles emphasize being punctual and providing quality service and products to her patients.
I can only arrive to this because of Opus Dei.
Okay.
Yeah. Opus Dei is a sanctity of ordinary work. It allows me to refocus on things that are material to something higher than what we can see with the eyes.
Opus Dei's members are required to attend Mass, visit the Blessed Sacrament, and engage in an examination of conscience daily. Some consider this to be too demanding and too rigid, but judging by Dr. Tananko, it seems the results are well worth all the sacrifice and time.
Somebody's cooking, but at the same time praying is different from just cooking and cursing. You're praying. So it's a mundane work, but it has a value. That work is now value, the value of redemption, the value of glorifying God.
When she puts it that way, it's obvious Opus Dei does nothing more than emphasize basic Catholic principles. No mystery here.
Well, earlier we mentioned Opus Dei in the Da Vinci Code. Well, Hollywood will be taking another look at Opus Dei next year, but this time it's based on fact. The early life of the group's founder, Saint Jose Maria Escriva, will be explored next year in a movie called There Be Dragons. The writer and director is Roland Jaffe, who's best known for The Killing Fields and The Mission.
When we come back, in his new book, President Bush reveals the very personal reason why he is pro-life. We have that and the rest of the day's headlines coming up next.
Welcome back to Currents. I'm Matt McClure.
And I'm Francesca Maxime. Coming up just a bit later, a new look at the work of a controversial priest.
But first, let's turn to the day's headlines. A new poll finds Americans of all religious faiths are divided about the proposed Islamic Community Center near Ground Zero. 6 in 10 Catholics and 6 in 10 Mormons believe the center should be built in another location. On the other hand, about 40% of Muslims and non-religious Americans support the current site. Jewish Americans, Protestants, and other Christians fall more along the middle. The Gallup poll conducted last month surveyed hundreds of Americans from different religious groups. The Islamic Community Center and mosque would be built 2 blocks away from the former site of the World Trade Center. Well, President Obama, meantime, says the U.S. is on the right path to a better relationship with the Muslim world. The president's Asia trip took him to Indonesia today. At a press conference, Obama said he has worked hard to repair strained relations with Muslims around the world, but he admitted there is a long way to go. President Obama also said he is concerned about the Mideast peace process. He said it appears Israelis and Palestinians are not making the extra effort to create a framework for peace. Well, back here in this country, a former president says his mother's miscarriage shaped his pro-life views. In his new memoir, Decision Points, former President George W. Bush recalls an incident during his teens when he drove his mother to the hospital while she held her miscarried fetus in a jar. In an interview with NBC's Matt Lauer, Bush said seeing the fetus had a profound impact on his belief that, quote, we should respect life. Decision Points contains other personal stories from his presidency. Among them, Bush said he approved waterboarding for terror suspects and said the federal government's response to Hurricane Katrina was unacceptable. That new book hits store shelves today. Well, a federal judge has temporarily blocked a new amendment to the Oklahoma state constitution prohibiting state courts from considering Sharia law. Local Muslim leader Munir Awad challenged the amendment in court, saying it violates the Establishment Clause of the U.S. Constitution. That's the clause that says the government cannot enact laws respecting the establishment of religion. In his lawsuit, Awad said, quote, the goal of the amendment was to stigmatize Islam by establishing in the public's mind that Islam is something foreign and to be feared. Well, the measure was approved by 70% of Oklahoma voters November 2nd.
A human rights group in Ireland is calling on the government to investigate the past abuse of women and girls in Catholic workhouses. The Irish Human Rights Commission released a report today saying for 70 years, judges put teens and women in the so-called Magdalene laundries for petty crimes for becoming pregnant outside of marriage, for petty crimes or for becoming pregnant outside of marriage. The report says the laundries were prison-style facilities where women were forced to work with no pay. Reports say the Irish government believes it bears no responsibility for what went on in the laundries. One victims group says it wants an apology from the government and from the Orders of None who ran the institutions. Meantime, another type of abuse will be at the center of high-level meetings at the Vatican next week. We get details on that from Rome Reports.
The Pope has summoned his College of Cardinals to the Vatican to reflect and pray for key church issues, such as religious freedom, liturgy, and the Church's response to the enduring sex abuse scandal. The summit will take place on November the 19th. The section entitled The Church's Response to the Cases of Sexual Abuse will be presided by American Cardinal William Joseph Levada. Amid one of the worst scandals gripping the Church in decades, Benedict has already responded by meeting with church leaders and sexual abuse victims face-to-face all over the world. The summit will take place one day before the Pope formally installs 24 new cardinals, which nearly all of the cardinals are already expected to attend. The meeting will also discuss how the Catholic Church will incorporate the Anglican bishops who recently left the Church of England, as well as religious freedom in the world, the liturgy in the life of the Church, and Dominus Iesus, a document published in 2000 by the Congregation of the Doctrine of Faith.
And finally tonight, a new study shows a link between teens who excessively send text messages and sex, alcohol, and drug use. Researchers presented the results to the American Public Health Association today. They found that teens who text 120 times or more per day were more likely to have had sex or used alcohol or drugs than their peers who text less often. The researchers say they're not suggesting that excessive texting leads to more risky behavior, but they did say that teens with more involved and watchful parents tend to steer clear of such activities.
Interesting results there. Well, stay tuned. There's much more Currents coming up. Just ahead, is this what Jesus looked like on the way to Calvary? We'll get the story behind this fascinating image.
Welcome back. Well, millions around the world are familiar with the famous Shroud of Turin, the relic many believe to be the burial cloth of Christ. Fewer, though, may know about a cloth called the Holy Face of Manopello, sometimes called the Veil of Veronica, another relic that some say has an imprint of the face of Christ. Well, a new book, The Face of God, hopes to bring the story behind that cloth to a wider audience. And joining us to talk about it is the author, Paul Bade. Nice to meet you, Paul, and welcome to Currents.
It's my pleasure.
You're a journalist. Tell us how you first came across this veil and what made you want to write a book about it.
As you said, I'm a reporter. I'm a correspondent for a German big newspaper. I covered Intifada in Jerusalem, then I came to Rome, and then I realized that that the biggest story on earth would be waiting for me there. Because the fact is, the unbelievable fact is, Christianity has an image of Christ. They had it. It got lost together with a memory, but it's still there. It's still unharmed. It's still there, but nobody knows it. But now it's rediscovered. Okay. It is an enormous rediscovery.
And this book certainly brings it back to life. What is it exactly, and why is it sometimes called the Veil of Veronica?
It's a very thin veil of the most precious fabric you can get in the world. It's byssus, it's sea silk, and it is. It changes name very often because until now, people did not know what it was. The origin is the grave in the Holy Tomb in Jerusalem. But then it changed its name very often. Now it's called Volto Santo, the Holy Face in Manopello. It used to be called the Veil of the Veronica in Rome, where it attracted millions of pilgrims for centuries. And another in the East, it was called the Veil of Abgar, the painting of Abgar. So until now, it has changed. It has hidden behind different names, but now here we got it, and it is beautiful. Yeah.
Well, this is really, a remarkable find. What kind of evidence is there to authenticate it, to actually, prove that it is in fact the face of Christ that you came upon?
It is completely compatible with the gospel of the resurrection. When John and Paul, in the Gospel of John, John tells in the tomb was not empty. Two cloths were laying there. At the right side, big otonia, as he called a cloth, and apart from this, a little handkerchief. This was the sudarium. And everything, the cloth, the Shroud of Turin, tells everything about the Passion, and every detail, even more details than the Passion itself. And this tells everything about the resurrection. So both of them tell the half of the story, but together they tell the story of the Passion and Resurrection of Christ.
Wow. And how long have you been researching this?
For, let's say, 15 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So a long time.
Yeah.
Certainly a lot of work has gone into it. What does your book really tell us about it? I mean, you began to talk about the piece of cloth itself. Tell us a little bit more about it and the history and where it's been displayed and how people can maybe see it.
People can see it in Manopello. It's a little remote town in the east of Italy, at the height of Rome, on the Adrian coast. And it is, as I said, it is a big discovery. And this book contains, let's say, the logbook of my discovery. I made this long journey. I've been in Jerusalem, I've been in Constantinople, I've seen many different places. This book contains everything on my way of the rediscovery. I discovered those who had done work done before me, the different persons. It's not my own work alone, yeah.
What do you think this means to people who are Catholic and to people that are Christians, really, who really want to maybe pull a deeper faith out of this? What do you think it means?
It means, I wouldn't say a hell of a lot, a heaven of a lot. No, because today is the 9th of November. 21 years ago, the wall in Berlin came down. I, as being a European, Europe had lost the imagination of its own face. Europe, I knew the map of Morocco by heart. I knew the map of Spain by heart. I could hitchhike everywhere. But east of Germany, I just did not know anymore, let alone Hungary and Czechoslovakia, etc. So Europe had lost a feeling for its own identity. The same happens with the Christianity. They have lost, look, what really makes the difference, God did not become a book, he did not become a library, he became man, and he became one face. And we've got a face of him. Christianity preserves all time. This makes a difference to all other religions, to Judaism, to Islam, to all other religions. No religion in the world claims that they know how God looks like. We do.
And we have this wonderful new book that you have painstakingly researched to detail it. Paul, thank you so much for joining us today, and we will put a little bit more of this on our website. Stay with us. There's much more current straight ahead. When we return, the work of one prolific Catholic writer is getting another look.
I remember seminarians were a little nervous about reading him, and yet so many of his books were in our prayer stalls.
Pierre Teilhard de Chardin was a Jesuit priest, philosopher, scientist, and geologist, and one of the most controversial Catholics of the 20th century. His ideas about the nature of the universe and original sin sparked considerable debate. In 1950, Pope Pius XII even condemned several of his theories.
But Pope John Paul and Pope Benedict have also praised some of his ideas, and he remains really a fascinating figure. That fascination brought dozens of people to Douglaston last week for a forum on Teilhard de Chardin, sponsored by the tablet.
How does one adequately introduce Father Pierre Teilhard de Chardin? This started a few years ago as a dream, and thanks to Bishop DiMarzio and to Ed Wilkinson of the tablet, this dream became possible. This is our 5th one, and we have a movie, a major documentary on a particular individual. Tonight, Father Teilhard de Chardin.
The topic tonight is Teilhard de Chardin, a very famous theologian, paleontologist, Jesuit priest. Teilhard de Chardin was quite controversial. He was exiled from his own country, Paris, because of his writings. He was trying to think very creatively about sin, original sin, about man and the universe, and didn't have all the support of other colleagues. And he had to see our Father General in Rome, and then Rome issued a monitum, some kind of cautions about some of his writings. I think more and more, though, we're seeing that he certainly was asking the right questions and moving in the right direction. I'd like to think there's a little bit of a renaissance now of some of his thinking.
I believe the universe is in evolution. I believe evolution's focal point is the spirit. I believe that the spirit of man ends in personalization. I believe the supreme person is the universal Christ.
I first heard of Teilhard de Chardin when I was in the seminary in Huntington, and I remember a time in which seminarians were a little nervous about reading him, and yet so many of his books were in our prayer stalls. And so to see the film tonight, to be here 40 years later for me, is a wonderful affirmation of that whole time.
The people learn about these events through the pages of the tablet. They read about it in the tablet, we advertise it. We usually run a feature story about the particular person that we're going to highlight, and then we run advertising and we just ask them to send us an email, request tickets. We don't charge anything for them, it's all free.
Free.
It's a wonderful event, and people from all over the diocese come to this, and they're so excited and energized and appreciative of what's happening.
The next one we'll do will be next April, will be on Bishop Fulton J. Sheen. So we're expecting a good crowd for that, as well as we got tonight, over 300 people.
I want to see the day when we have a forum, when people are standing in the auditorium. That's my ambition.
I'm looking forward to coming again because I have this sense that with the fellowship in the center between the film and the lecture, that you do get to know people across the diocese.
There's also a camaraderie. I think there's an intellectual and a spiritual and a social camaraderie and a sense of community when we're here.
Well, Teilhard de Chardin died in New York City in 1955. He's buried in Poughkeepsie on the grounds of a former Jesuit novitiate that is now home to the Culinary Institute of America. Very fascinating.
Yeah, certainly a real big intellectual, and they described him as a Renaissance man, someone sort of thinking perhaps beyond his time, but you know, some of those ideas obviously brought a lot of people out, so it was a topic of great interest, and that's really good to see.
Definitely, and you hear some of his ideas there just in a little bit of narration that we saw from the film, and you know, it's fascinating stuff, and you know, a lot of it you can kind of see why maybe some people would have to like, hold on, wait a minute, does that sound quite right? Mm-hmm. But then, you know, now after time, oh, this is what he really, you know, people kind of delve into it a little bit more and see really kind of the meaning behind it. And it's fascinating stuff. It's very, very interesting, and like we said earlier, I mean, very poignant sort of thought, and you know, a controversial figure for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Well, that is it for tonight. Coming up tomorrow, an innovative photography project that looks at the priesthood from a very different perspective. We'll show it to you.
All right, but in the meantime, remember, we're always online over at currentsny.net. You can also find us on Facebook and on Twitter. And if you have a story idea, drop us a line. It's drop us a line at currentsny.net. That's our website. Just, you know.
Our email.
Reel us on in.
Yeah.
That's our email on our website. Anyway, until next time. I'm Matt McClure.
Happy Tuesday. I'm Francesca Maxime. Thanks for joining us. Have a good night.
Is it Friday yet?
Yeah.